Hello, welcome everyone to the Global Summit I Am Possible, an event to inspire you to have the courage to be yourself so we can together create a heart-centered revolution. My name is Mar Guerrero and I'm the founder of Alma Kemi. And today I'm very excited to have with us Jane Burns. She's a writer, shamanic practitioner, a teacher, specializing in the Celtic, indigenous, and spiritual practice. And today she's going to be talking about the challenge of becoming our sovereign selves. So welcome, Jane. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. And I would love you to start with your own journey. Like, how did you come to start practicing Celtic shamanism, and what is difference about that with other kind of shamanism?
Well, I think most people who follow this path and who begin to study shamanism start with what's called core shamanism, which is just sort of a study of the overlap of the practices of all indigenous cultures throughout the world. All cultures began shamanically. Some of those cultures are still practicing today in some of the more remote regions of the world. And some of those traditions are broken long ago by organized religion and conquest, colonization, so on and so forth. So core shamanism is sort of the study of all of those cultures and what is common among all of them. And, there's kind of a joke among among shamanic practitioners that until you really focus on a particular culture or tradition, you're not really practicing shamanism, that things get really so much more interesting and richer when you kind of decide that you're going to follow a particular tradition. And there's a lot of people who have gone into the Peruvian because the Peruvian is an unbroken tradition and it's really available, and there are indigenous teachers that are, can be, invoked for their wisdom that's been passed down through the ages, and they've been taught by their elders and so on, and that has a lot of appeal. I went towards the Celtic because it is my heritage, and I felt that it was something, first of all, that I was interested in, that I definitely had an interest in. And then I also felt that it just sort of made sense that was really the practice of my ancestral tradition. So that was the reason why I went in that particular direction. The Celtic tradition is what we call a broken tradition, although we could probably argue about how broken it really is. I think that there are still really strong vestiges of indigenous practice and indigenous ways of seeing and being in the world that are still very, very much alive in the Celtic spirit of modern day. And so I started to study with Tom Cowan, who is pretty well known. He's retired now, but very well known for his teaching and exploration of Celtic shamanism. And a lot of the places that we go, because it's a broken tradition, is back into the myths, which do exist. The myths were largely in the oral tradition until the Middle Ages, and then they were written down by monks. And so we go there to sort of understand, well, what is the message of these people? What are their priorities? What do they care about? What do they believe in? And you can find their sense of morality, their sense of their place in the world, their sense of what is meaningful, and their sense in particular of their connection to their land and their reverence for it and their reverence for nature. And it's all there in their practices, their stories, their prayers, their blessings, which even exist today. And So that's where we go to try to piece together, well, what is Celtic shamanism, and what did these indigenous people in this part of the world believe in? How did they practice what they believed in? And how were they influenced by the land and by the nature beings that they coexisted with? So that was how I got into Celtic shamanism, and I have been studying Celtic shamanism and teaching it for, I guess, now 16 years.
And what do you think is different from Celtic shamanism to other origins?
I don't know about different, but I think that there is a greater emphasis on a sort of poetic or lyrical slant on life, a real connection to music and to song. Not that other indigenous cultures don't have that same connection. I mean, it's really hard to say they're doing something completely unique when I don't really think they are, but it's just their way of connecting to the word, to poetry, to song, to prayer, to blessing, in order to express their love of the land, their kind of how do I want to say this? The way in which they express and depict what struggle is, and how they feel about being in the world, about what it takes to be an individual living in the world. And that's I think what to me magnifies this particular practice. And it's filled with that kind of language and an elaborate praising of nature and the beauty of nature, a gratefulness for nature. And as I said, it's not unique necessarily or different, but I think that it's more accentuated in the Celtic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm getting a blast from the sun here.
Yes, yes.
There's
light on arc.
It's supposed to be raining today, but it's not behaving right now.
So with that emphasis in music and art and poetry, I keep also seeing how creativity and art is a very important way of really healing many of the things that human beings are going through. With what even traumas or particular personal stories, that energy needs to be transformed into something. So what do you think about that, the role of creativity for healing and transformation?
Oh, the role of creativity is to provide greater self-knowing. I mean, there is no better avenue for self-discovery and greater self-knowing and understanding how our vision is unique, how our voice is unique, than through creative expression. And that's, whether it's music, performance arts, writing, painting, dance, it doesn't matter what aspect of creative expression you're talking about. It is the best way for us to figure out who we are and what we have to bring to the table, what sets us apart, what makes us unique. We don't generally like being different. We're kind of trained and educated to
we
fit
want
in.
to fit in, yeah.
Yeah, we want to fit in and we want to belong and we want to not really stand out. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of people abandon their creative endeavors. They're very creative as children, in some manner or other, either because they love to draw or they love to dance or something, and then that's abandoned in teenhood or early adulthood, And I believe that one of the reasons for that is because when they've had these experiences where they have demonstrated their creativity, it's been criticized or it's been rejected. And it's very wounding when that happens, because there is something about creative expression, which, no matter, even if you're trying not to, creative expression is revealing, and it just says, this is who I am. And when, children have these experiences where somebody tells them that they can't draw because their drawing doesn't look like the other kids, or that they can't sing, or that they're awkward and they shouldn't be dancing, or whatever it is, or your body isn't built for that. And it's very, very wounding, because that is their avenue to say to the world, here I am, here's what I'm about. Here's how I see things. Here's what I believe in. Here's my passion. Here are all my emotions, just laying it out there, And, it's what we look for when we come to, creative art, whether it's in a museum or we're listening to somebody singing. We want to see that passion. We want to see something that really, hits us between the eyes, and just knocks us back. We go in kind of expecting that, because we do understand that this is the territory out of which that arises, And so, I mean, it's something that comes up in my work all the time. When I'm doing soul retrieval, and I'm bringing back all these lost bits and pieces of individuals that have been wounded in some way through childhood. They've been talked out of being who they are. They've negotiated away parts of themselves so that they would fit in, or that they could survive better. And it's understandable. Children are completely, especially as babies, they're 100% dependent on their caretakers, on their caregivers. And if it seems like, this is an aspect of myself that doesn't play well in the family, it's not, my mother doesn't want me to be this way, or my father disapproves of me being this way. And it becomes very wounding, to feel that rejection. It seems like the wiser thing to just denounce or, abandon that way of being, and to develop a different, a different side of themselves. But of course, in order for us to really do what we came here to do, and we all have a purpose, there's a meaning to everyone's life. There's a reason why we're here. There's something that we want to accomplish. That's why we came in the first place. And in order to really undertake that work, which we eventually begin to crave, once, we realize that belonging isn't all that it's cracked up to be, and we just want to do what we came here to do, you need to have those parts of yourself on board, all those parts that you abandoned for the purpose of survival, or being loved, or getting along better, or understanding more about how the world works. Children are very dependent upon their parents to say, this is how it works here. The world is a strange world. They come in from the world of spirit. And there are things that the world demands that they need to be schooled in. And so that's one of the reasons why they believe so intently on, what their education tells them, what their upbringing tells them, that, the family creed, this is the way we do things. This is the way we see the world. This is the way you behave in the world. And they, adapt to all of this because they want to get along. They want to survive. But as I said, when there comes that turning point where people are like restless and they're going like, whose life is this? I chose this. I mean, this is not scratching the itch for me. This is not who I am. Who am I really? And those kinds of questions become so important. That is when you really want to recoup and bring back on board those soul parts that were lost, during the childhood experience. And so what I find typically when I'm returning those soul parts is that the thing that they want to sink their teeth into is some kind of creative expression. And I'll say to the person, do you draw? And they'll say, oh, well, I did as a kid. I loved to color, and but my father told me that I didn't know how to draw, or, my art teacher said that I was horrible at drawing, and so I stopped. And, there's a vast variety of reasons why people stop being who they are. And then, the way in which they will integrate that soul part that has come back to them is to, again, explore that through painting, through drawing, through sketching. And it happens almost to a person that there will be some creative thing that is a part of their homework in integrating the soul parts and in seeding the shamanic work that has been done. I'm always amazed at people who say, oh, I'm not the least bit creative. It's like, we're all creative. We're creative beings. We can't not be creative. And it's so confining and so limiting to define yourself in that way, because you're never going to explore any of those avenues that are going to show you who you are. So that's my spiel on creative expression.
And also it's also creative to have like a cooking and then just make up a new dish or create a business, or there is a need of creation for many other endeavors that is
even problem solving.
They're also important. Yes.
Even problem solving is creative, and people don't give it that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who they have this creative bent to be able to just pierce right through to the heart of the matter. They see what's wrong. They can generate a solution, just off the top of their head. I mean, that requires an enormous amount of creativity. And there's a lot of people who they just go around in the dark. Like, what do we do about this? This isn't working. And they just keep doing the same thing they were doing before because it's the only thing that they know. And you have these wonderful, creative, innovative, entrepreneurial kind of minds, people who are visionaries. They're incredibly creative. They're seeing things and understanding how things work in a way that the common person doesn't. And so there's lots and lots of ways in which we can demonstrate our creativity and find avenues for that.
And the topic for today is that the challenge of becoming ourselves and our sovereign selves. Yeah. Why do you think it's a challenge?
Well, because we're talked out of it from the get-go. I mean, we're conditioned, and our conditioned self, which is a large part of who we are. People call it the ego. People call it, the little self, or whatever you want to call it. That is the sum and total of all of those influences of our upbringing, our education, our family creed, our socialization, even peer pressures, and keeping up with the Joneses, and all of that kind of stuff, which we kowtow to our whole life, because we're taught that this is the way to live in the world, and this is how to be safe, and this is how to be successful, and this is how to be included in community. And of course, we can't survive without community. I mean, when we're children, our community is our family, and then we go outside that, and then it's our school and our peer group, or it might become our church, or our community in which we live. Our neighborhood, and so on, and our work group, the people that we work with, it's another community. And one of the ways in which we are supposed to get along in all of those arenas is to be like everybody else, to do what everybody else is doing. So anything that is idiosyncratic to us or unique, we are ambivalent at best toward, because of these wounding experiences that have happened anytime that we did kind of come out and show who we were and take the bushel off our heads and show our light. You know, oftentimes, you know, particularly in childhood, those experiences have not gone well. And so being who we are is like the hardest thing for us. It's the thing that we do not want to do, but it's the thing that we must do. And I think that a lot of times, you know, our life reaches a crisis point where we break finally, and we just say, I can't go another day without saying what I need to say and doing what I need to do, and the consequences be damned. Some people never reach that point, and some people reach it earlier than others. But I think that there has to be that turning point where you begin to follow something else. You begin to follow something much, much deeper, which is the call and yearning of your soul. That's why we're here. We're here to follow that call, not the call of the world. And then everything changes, you know, and we become, you know, as they say, you know, we're in the world, but not of the world, you know, and we kind of turn our back on those kind of priorities, like, you know, your bank book balance, or, you know, what school your children go to, or what kind of car you drive, or what neighborhood you live in, or, you know, whether people like you, whether people think that you're, you know, a good person or approve of what you're doing. All of that goes out the window. You know, because I think at that point, you're not living for you, you're living for the world. You're living for humanity. You're being the change that you want to see in the world. And your work is then not of you, not for you anymore. It's of you, but it's not for you anymore. It's really for the world. And that's how the world will change, you know, with more and more people going like, okay, I have to start playing by my own rules now. I have to start following this yearning deep within me and answering only to that. And, you know, there are losses that occur. Sometimes, you know, people's families and, you know, maybe even their closest friend or their spouse or even their children, like, what are you doing? You know, like, what is wrong with you? And, you know, you have to just keep going. You know, you have to just keep moving. And you know, and sometimes I think it's, you know, it's sort of like when you're in those formative times when you're just, you know, getting your stuff together, it looks messy, and it might even look a little crazy, and off kilter. And so those are usually the times when I think our family, you know, becomes concerned, you know, about us. But after you get your feet in there and you start really, you know, being who you are and really, you know, following your own creative impulses, you know, the visions of your imagination, you know, which you'll be fed with as soon as you open the door, in it comes. And, you know, you're following down all your dreams. You know, children abandon their dreams. It's one of the things that I bring back quite often, you know, when I'm bringing back soul parts, the dreamer, the one who held all your dreams, you know, and they're often non-ordinary reality because those dreams, there was no ground for those dreams to grow on, you know, because of the choices that had to be made in childhood. And so, yeah, I mean, once you kind of get your stride, I think your loved ones in your community tend to, you know, calm down a bit. They go like, oh, okay, there's a method.
They're still functioning, so it's okay.
There's a method to the madness, after all. But you know, it can sometimes look a little terrifying when it's in its formative years.
Yeah. And how do you think, like, when someone who is listening to us and is like, okay, I know I want to tap into that, but I don't know what to do. Like, they are so far
Yeah,
away from that calling and the soul that is like,
yeah,
I know I'm hungry for something. I know I'm yearning for
yeah,
something, but I don't know what to do. Like,
yeah.
so what would you recommend in that? And
Well,
also, like, for, yes.
no, go ahead.
No, for the people who are also like in the middle of the crisis, that it seems external, and that external is kind of like reflecting something that is that to wake up, but it still seems external. So it's like, how do I manage with all of these, and how do I really connect with who I am? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, I think again, it's connecting with those dreams that might seem like pipe dreams. It might seem like something that you never take seriously. Whether it's like, you have this yearning to be on the stage, or you have this yearning to teach or to travel, or to write a book. Um, and you as soon as you dream it, as soon as that yearning kind of comes up, you stifle it. And so it's one of the ways to kind of look is what are the things that I dream about doing, even though I've told myself there's no way that's ever going to happen in this life. What are the things that I dream about and that I yearn for? The other place to go, oddly, is what scares you the most, because
I love
that indicates what you were talked out of. And the things that we get talked out of are really they are really the cloth of what it is that we are supposed to be undertaking, and what we're supposed to be doing. um, you know uh, One of the things that used to terrify me, oddly enough, I think about it now, when I was younger, um, was working with people, like in the way that I do now. I mean, shamanism is very, very intimate work. And so you're not just working with people, you're working really deeply with people. And I was really terrified of that. I mean, that seemed to me like I just wanted to like hide away somewhere and write books, and like have as little to do with working with people as possible. And I just felt like you're just not good at getting along with people. Just like admit it. And I in doing a lot of work on myself and looking at what that fear was and where it came from, and how that was sort of installed within me through my childhood years, and for a variety of reasons. And once you can heal that and begin to peel that back and recoup those parts of yourself that were originally there, and had a voice and had a power and had a place at the table, then you can begin to come to walk a little bit closer to what it is that you came here to do. And so I always tell people that and I say that to people in their sessions, because I can see the things that are terrifying them, and we talk about it, and I say, this is where you go, this is what you look at to see what's underneath that, and it will reveal the kind of thing that you were probably meant to be doing in the world. I think it's the biggest question of all the clients that I get. It's the biggest question that people ask: what am I doing here? What am I supposed to be doing? They know they're not doing the kind of work that they are, that they're engaged in. They might be in the right church, but they know they're in the wrong pew. They're maybe like skimming the perimeter of what it is that they want to do. But that's the kind of work that is necessitated. Soul retrieval and bringing back those parts. And I often say that to people. We'll try and move away some of the obstacles that keep you from being who you are, and we'll try and recoup some of the things that you lost along the way that you really require going forward to do the work that you came in to do. Unfortunately, I think that we're at a great disadvantage. But again, let's go back to the creative expression. That's another way in which you can begin to figure out, what am I here for? What do I have to bring to the table? How can I serve the world? Our creativity always reveals to us our unique vision, our unique voice, the things that we are concerned about, the things that we care about. That's another place to look. What really upsets you? What really, gets you fired up? Is it injustice to others? Is it poverty? Is it the way children are treated? Is it the way we educate our children? Like, what is it that just like gets your goat? Gets you like really upset? Those are also indicators of the kind of work that you came in to do. Otherwise, it wouldn't upset you that much. You'd be like, yeah, that's too bad, and you would just go on. So there's lots of areas that you can kind of look that'll give you clues. But it is hard. It is hard to figure out what that is. I think that the doing of it in many ways reveals to you what it is. So you have to be willing to go like, well, let me just give this a shot. Let me try this. I feel like it's something in this arena. So let me just, start, taking yoga classes, or let me start meditating, or let me start, learning how to draw, or what, like whatever it is, that you begin to feel like, I think what I am meant to do in this life is in this particular field. And then you just start playing, and it will reveal itself to you the more you open things up. I think for myself, I went through a long period where, like it started out, when my kids were little. I mean, I just was reading a lot of self-help books. I mean, I was doing a lot of my own inner work, but that was expressing my interest in healing. And I maybe didn't recognize it at the time, but, and I was interested in all these different things, like, psychic mediumship and reincarnation and past life regression. I mean, all this stuff, as it would be of interest to me, I would pursue it. Now, that's not what I'm doing now, but they were the stepping stones that got me, that opened the door, and then another door and another door, that, so that I found my way to shamanism. And having been studying shamanism for like over 20 years now, one of the things that I note about that is that I've never lost interest in it. All the other things I would burn through in a year or two. I would be all about past life regression and be like, yeah, not so much, like I would be on to the next thing and the next thing, And shamanism, my interest has never waned. It just deepens as time goes on. So then you begin to feel, okay, this is my pew. this is where I belong. I'll sit here, just see what happens. And then you just wait. You just wait for the inspiration, whatever. And when I started teaching, what am I going to teach? You wait for the inspiration, just like you do with writing. It will come. If the door's open, it's going to come in, and so it's a matter of like, we have to open all the doors. We have to open all the doors and windows and express the desire to have that come in. We've been socialized to keep all those windows and doors shut, and to ignore all of that. Heaven forbid. But, as long as you, kind of turn the ship around and start, living in a different way where you are inviting that, it will come back. There's no question. It will come back.
Yes. I love what you're saying, especially also with the fear and anger, because in this year that has been so difficult for everyone. And now we are listening to this in 2021, but still it's like we are in this process of like transformation, and there is a lot of fear and anger and And in spirituality, there is sometimes these ideas that feeling anger or feeling fear or feeling afraid is just not good. But is what you are saying is like, it's also like, it's showing us our
Oh
path.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
it's such a different,
Yes.
like I feel it in the same way, like in my own life. It's like wherever I'm afraid of, that is exactly the place that I need to go.
Yeah.
And the same with the anger. What makes me really angry is something that is Mar, that's it,
Yeah.
that's your way. So it's exactly perfect. And I kept listening to this message of the opposite, not like just suppress the fear or suppress. So it's not so much about suppressing, but looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we don't like to feel angry. We don't like to feel afraid. We really don't like to feel afraid. And so to suggest to somebody, well, go in there, you know, they look at you like you're crazy. No, I don't want to go in there. But there's, you know, the fear, you know, the anger, the depression, they're messengers. You know this poem by Rumi, The Guest House. Um, this being human is a guest house, he says, every day a new arrival. And then he goes on, a joy, a depression, a malice, you know, and he mentions all of these things, and you greet them all at the door laughing. You know, you open the door wide, even if they empty your house out of all of its furniture. You know, you sort of allow the destruction to ensue because you know that at the end of it, there will be some truth revealed that needs to come out. And that is the very thing that then gives you insight and direction. Oh, I need to go here. Oh, this is who I am. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, how else are you going to get to that? It's buried. There's no question about the fact that it's buried. Um, it's off stranded somewhere in non-ordinary reality. You know, it's still with you, but it's not online, you know. And, you know, how else are you going to get to it unless you just get on the road and start moving toward it instead of running away from it?
And it's also like, in that sense, socially is very interesting how when we are depressed or we are feeling these emotions that are supposed to be bad and they don't feel okay, then, and we say it and we express it with people that we love, the normal reaction is to how, like, to fix that, instead of like taking the time, because sometimes they just need to be felt, aren't they?
Yeah,
Like they just, and we have socially this issue, like if we ask how are you doing, we all expect the other person to say I'm okay. But if the person is truly honest and one day says I'm awful, I feel really bad today, and normally instead of just listening to the person, we just try to fix them.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's,
or
yeah, it's something that it keeps coming to
away.
me, and it's like, how do we truly listen without trying to fix anything?
Yeah. No, I think that really for most people, all they really want is to be heard. You know, when they're going through a struggle, let them, you know, give them the respect as as a soul to find their way through it, because they will garner so much from it, and it is the process of their life to which they are entitled. And I think that, you know, when somebody is suffering through something, you just, all they really want is for you to listen to them and to give an indication that you do hear them, you know, not to just sit there, you know, but to, you know, repeat back to them, or however you do it, um, you know, or even to ask questions. You know, I've um, you know, I've spoken to, you know, to friends and family who, you know, who are going through things, and, you know, you just ask them directly, well, what, you know, how's that going, or, you know, whatever. And oftentimes people will look and they'll go, you're the first person who's asked me that. You know, because we see people in their grief, or we see people in their depression, or we, we see people struggling with some kind of problem and we never ask. We say, oh, they probably don't want to talk about it. Or, it's maybe because we don't want to talk about it, or, whatever.
Yes.
And it's the elephant in the room, so just go in there, and you just say, like, you seem sad to me. Are you sad? What's going on? You want to talk to me about that? And they can always say no, but, if you ever do want to talk about it, I'm happy to listen. But I think that you're right. I think that we do feel that it's incumbent upon us to come up with a solution. And it's not, it's each of our own individual, we're entitled to this, to come up with our own solutions, to discover those solutions for ourselves, because we render so much from it. We get so much from it. When we solve our own problems, when we come out to the other side of an ordeal, and we know that we ourselves were the ones who carried ourselves through it, it gives us such strength, such resilience, such courage, and that's what we need to have on board for the next time something comes along, and it'll probably be something harder. That's the way life is. It's like, oh, okay, she's got algebra 2 down. Let's give her some trigonometry. That's the way it happens, So, yeah, we gain so much from just facing our trials head on and going through them with our eyes open and sitting in the fire of it. So much strength is rendered from that. It's just, it's a blessing. It really is. And it's exactly what Rumi is saying. This is ultimately all a blessing. There's really, important truths and wisdom and strength and, resilience, contained in all of those things that we tend to slam the door on,
Yeah. And that is what we are living now globally, in a way, right? Isn't it? It's like these times that are transformative, but it's not in an individual level, it's globally. So it's like the whole planet is going through this. And we do need each other to support each other, and is to learn these skills of like truly listening and truly tapping into our power, and then reaching out for other people who are like maybe a few steps, and then they can reflect back. And for me, this has been the intention with the summit. So there is like inspiration for people to do their inner work, and then from there we can make a different reality outside that we can all see that is not working. So absolutely. How do we change it?
So it's interesting. There's one of the things that I hear more often than not from my clients is how much they're enjoying this time. How much they're creating, how good it has been for them to just take a break from the stress of their ongoing life. It's a different stress. Obviously, this is not stressless to go through what we're going through. But, they see themselves changing. They have the room and the leisure to do that, when normally we don't. We have to struggle to change because there's so many other things on our plate. And it's interesting to me because, you would think that most people would be struggling. And I just in my own little survey of, the clients that I work with, most people are enjoying this time, enjoying it in a way, just to be able to take a break in the action and to be able to try some things that they'd never had time to do, and to sit and contemplate, to sit and pray, to sit and meditate, to just alter the pace of their life, and in the quiet discover new things. It's remarkable. I mean, and like anything, like any sort of betwixt and between, or what the Celts called the thin places, where it's neither this nor that, and it's those transitional times in between what was and what will be. You know, as is true, you know, in any of those kind of betwixt and between times, they're rich with possibility, you know, but they're also kind of ungrounded and you know, unpredictable, you know, and there are these forces at play in there that in times of, you know, betwixt and between, or times of threshold times, we might call them, there is a kind of instability that arises out of that. Well, what are we creating? Well, where are we going? Well, who am I going to be? What's going to be required of me? You know, and that kind of energy of instability can be very trying and very, very, very terrifying and very destructive.
Yeah. And also like to make peace with we don't know, and that's okay. That
Yeah.
is this idea that we have to know everything all the time. I think it has been very limiting in a way. It's like we don't know everything, and that's okay. And we don't know how the world is going to look like in 2021, at the end of 2021, in 2025. It's like we have no clue. Nobody knows. Like I
No.
think even if they say they do, no, nobody knows. It's like
Well,
we
who could have
haven't
imagined
seen the
this?
consequences. Yeah, it's like who?
Who could have imagined where we are now? No one would have dreamt that up, you know. You know, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, very true.
So with that, I would love you. We will have your website below the video. So if anybody wants to work with you, but also for you to, would you already mention, right? Like you do shamanic work and classes, but is there anything that you would like to share regarding that?
You know, a lot of people are, you know, right now, because I'm not teaching any in-person classes, you know, people want to know about Celtic shamanism, you know, and they don't really know where to go. And you know, I didn't teach at all this year. I had 6, you know, workshops or, you know, weekend sessions that were all canceled and moved to next year. But, you know, there are a couple of courses on the Shift Network, you know, in Celtic shamanism, and one is about the Celtic Wisdom Wheel, and it's a 5-week course, and then the other one, no, 7-week course, and then the other one is about the virtues and living a virtuous life. And it's very relevant work for now, because it is looking at those times of trial when we face a decision, you know, of which way we're going to go. Are we going to take the high road here, or are we going to choose the course of least resistance, or are we going to stick our head in the sand? And you know, for the Celtic people, the honing of the virtues was very, very important. To live a virtuous life brought honor to our ancestors, and it paved the way for our children. Because if we made mistakes, or there were missteps in our demonstration of integrity or courage or generosity, etc., then that would become a burden on our children and our children's children. And so they felt that that was very important, to always live the best life that you could, no matter what the trial, no matter what the challenge or the struggle. And you know, we go through the virtues, and they're like generosity, courage, gratitude, peace, surrender. Not remembering all of them, but there's a different virtue every single week, and a kind of practice for how you hone that particular virtue in your life. I mean, it's not you know, it's certainly they're not easy things. It's not, it's the high road. It's not the easy way out. But in a way, it is the pathway that strengthens you more so, so that when other things come down the pike, you have the skills and the strength and the sort of self-trust to be able to deal with them, you know, much more efficiently. So those are available, like, for people, I mean, anywhere in the world. You know, you can go on the Shift Network, and or you can go on my website, and they're listed on the website, and you just click, and you know, it'll take you right to where you need to go to register. You know, and there's lots of wonderful books on Celtic shamanism. You can just, you know, peruse those online. But Tom Cowan, Frank McOwen are both have wonderful books on Celtic shamanism. Also Mara Freeman, and so I think between, you know, this is a time when we're doing a lot of reading, and we're doing online courses and things at home, and so those are things that people can do, you know, now during this time.
Perfect. I did the Celtic wisdom course, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think it was very deep, to connect with all the directions, to bring them together, and with the journeys and everything. So it's fascinating how online so much can happen. I still miss the in-person interaction, but yeah, it's like it still works being online.
Yeah, no, it does, surprisingly so. I think there were a lot of us who were kind of resistant to the idea of, like, how are you supposed to teach shamanism online? Are they kidding? You know, but it can be done.
Yeah, and then it can reach people like me in Thailand, right? It's like, if not, I wouldn't have access to that knowledge, or
That's
to
right.
other courses that I have taken that, yeah, in Thailand I wouldn't at all. So yeah,
right.
that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any final thoughts that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, in taking a page from the Celtic Indigenous Peoples book, I really think that just focusing on gratitude is so important, you know, and focusing on what is beautiful in our life, what is beautiful in the world around us, and really drinking those things in, and almost taking them in on a cellular level. It's like medicine, you know. I mean, we talk about, you know, is the glass half full or the glass half empty? I think when you really drink deeply, you know, of those bright, beautiful moments in life, even if it's just a tender moment between you and a loved one, or you know, someone gives you a gift, or, you know, it's a beautiful sunset, or you know, you hear some exquisite music, or read a wonderful poem, or whatever. Just stay with it. Don't go, oh, that was nice, and walk away. Just stay with it, like, as long as you can, and really sink deeply into it. Because I think that what it kind of ends up doing is, instead of the glass being half full, it makes the glass sort of 2/3 or 3/4 full, you know, and it's a little easier, you know, to deal with the downside.
Yes. So with that, thank you so much for being here, for your energy, and yeah, thank you everyone for listening to us and for being who you are. And yeah, just thank you.
You're very welcome.